okay, I'm gonna send out a series of emails, and then I'm gonna have a deadline. And I got some people to sign up on the first day, but then it was pretty much crickets. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've wasted an entire year of my life. And then it wasn't until that last day when I sent out a few emails and saying, okay, this is after today, you're not going to get access anymore. And $18,000 of orders came in.
And I was mainly taking care of like this greenhouse. So I had to like water the plants, like build a compost. But I spent probably 80% of my internship eating mangoes. I'm not kidding.
But a lot of people just use testimonials when they want to make the point of, hey, a lot of people use our stuff and they think that we're awesome. But there's other really creative ways that I think a lot of people overlook using client stories and testimonials that can really make your content so much more impactful.
We've got some.
Hey, I'm Luis.
And I'm FONZI.
And you're listening to the Content is Profit podcast,
where we talk about entrepreneurship, mindset, and of course, how to turn your content into profit.
But most importantly, we are here to have a good time with you. So go to contentisprofit.com and join the community.
Oh, yeah.
I crushed that
was
one.
good. High five. There we go.
Right,
you can now hear it in there. We just had an epic high five with a fist bump.
It's called a flump.
A flump?
A flump.
I've never heard that before.
All right. What are we talking about today, folks?
Today we're talking about bridging the gap between audience and content and maybe profits too, right?
Oh, yeah. Baby. Oh, baby.
Full credit goes to our guest website. It was pretty good. They had great headlines in there. Yeah. And you know how we roll. We roll out of curiosity. We're gonna dig deep today.
Podcasting hack. Everyone's like, how do you guys come up with those amazing titles? Go to your guest websites. They already have the amazing message in there. You want to highlight them. You want to show some love.
Good hack. That's a good hack.
Good hack.
Yeah, we should do a Instagram reel about that.
Anyways, all right, so we are back, and today we're going all out with a serial entrepreneur and founder of multiple SaaS companies. Big thanks to our hashtag Golden Boulder brother, Adam Shaibli.
Oh, man.
For the introduction. Adam, don't kill me.
That is right here. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to pass the caffeine to your side so you can get your mind straight.
Hey, the mind is straight, but when a newborn is in the house, I've been sleeping an average of 3 hours a night. Just going to put that out there.
I will give you that one, guys. Guys, today's guest is also a master of making complicated concepts into simple things to understand. And he knows how to build epic A+ teams of super talented people.
I'm going to take a guess here and say that is how he has been able to build and scale all those successful businesses
that grow year after year,
like Deadline Funnel, which he is a co-founder of.
That is right, guys. Please welcome co-founder of Deadline Funnel, kitesurf connoisseur. Also, he's a connoisseur of frozen margaritas and possibly my tennis partner in the next Australian Open, Jack Byrne. What's up, Jack?
Great to be here, guys. Man, listen to you guys makes me miss home. So I'm in Australia right now. It makes me miss the U.S. I grew up in Miami, Florida. I left St. Augustine, and I just love the Hispanic accent. I miss that community.
Yeah,
there's just something about it, and I don't get enough of that around here. So it's great to see you guys having fun.
Awesome, yeah, absolutely. By the way, you just made your like the fast climb to #1 because you're the first guest ever in like 270 episodes that says I love your Hispanic accent. So we're like, to this point, I'm like, I don't think I have a Hispanic accent. Nobody has said anything.
Yeah, that's right. Fun fact here too for the listeners as well. You actually come into Jacksonville. San Agustin is like 30 minutes away from Jacksonville, where we're at, and you're visiting here in a few weeks to Jacksonville, and we're gonna have to play some tennis, of course, maybe kite surfing there. We don't do any of that, but we can learn, and we're gonna go have some frozen margaritas, and it's gonna be epic.
I think somehow we should combine the margaritas and the tennis, and it could get really interesting.
I think it'll be great.
Yeah, fun fact.
Every time you lose a game, you gotta down a margarita.
We'll be carrying Fonzie out on a stretcher on that one. Just gonna put that out there. Jack, fun fact: the other day we were talking about like surfing and the thing, and Fonzie's like, "Oh, I'm about to go in and live in this amazing place, and I think I'm gonna take on surfing. And I'm like, dude, you know what? Like, I don't know surfing, but I really want to learn kite surf. So just gonna put that out there. You know, when you come in here, you know, some, you know, pointers out there, they'll be awesome. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have some tennis rackets that I bought that are waiting for me, and also some kite surfing gear. So I'm hoping to do a little bit of both when I come back to the States.
That's great. Well, at this point, we're gonna have to invite the audience too. If you guys want to join on this one, right? We're like teasing them over here. But Jack, for those that don't know you, right? Just give us a quick background on who you are and how did you land into the SaaS world, you know, serial entrepreneur, multiple companies, and now with Deadline Funnel.
Yeah, so my exit from corporate America happened shortly after 2001, so around 2002. I started building up a community where it was one of these network effect type of communities where it was actually a job board in the healthcare industry. And so that was a complicated thing that I really had to figure out on my own. I didn't know any programming. I did everything wrong. But I was just super tenacious. I decided to program everything by myself. They didn't have Upwork or Fiverr or things like this. And so a lot of this I had to do on my own. Made all the mistakes in the book. I built the thing for a year for free because, you know, on something where you've got both, you know, this side and that side, and you're trying to bring them together like a job board, you know, it can be really challenging. You can have one side of it solved, but you need both sides like participating in that marketplace. And so I built it up for free for a year. And after a year of doing that and taking some really strange jobs, you know, to keep things afloat, my wife came to me and she said, "Honey, it's time to fish or cut bait," as they say in the South. And, you know, it's time to find out if this thing has wings. And this was before anyone had talked about doing a product launch or talking about how that works. And so I just decided, okay, I'm gonna send out a series of emails, and then I'm gonna have a deadline. And I got some people to sign up on the first day. But then it was pretty much crickets. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've wasted an entire year of my life. And then it wasn't until that last day when I sent out a few emails and saying, okay, you know, this is after today, you're not going to get access anymore. And $18,000 of orders came in, which for me at the time was, I mean, it's still a good chunk of money, but for me at the time, that was like half the amount of money that I'd made at my corporate job the year before. Wow. And so that was a huge windfall. Wow. And so from there, some continuity, you know, revenue came in. It wasn't 18 grand every month. So those were a lot of annuals, but that was really my, you know, the light bulb didn't quite go off yet, but I did kind of notice that it wasn't until that deadline that people actually took action. There had been a lot of people who were interested, they were on the fence, they loved the thing, but it wasn't until they had to actually put up or shut up or make a decision that the money actually started to come in. So that was my first experience with the launch. I'll speed up the timeline. I did that for a while. I also did some consulting, and then a guy named Perry Marshall, who is a world-renowned author.
Is it the 80-20? The author of 80-20?
80-20 sales and marketing, but at the time he was really known as the guy who had cracked the code on Google AdWords. He wrote a book on it. He had a lot of courses on it, and I was a follower of his. I bought some of his stuff. I was on his newsletter, and he sent out an email that said, "Hey, I'm looking to hire some people, and one of them is an affiliate manager." And I had both been an affiliate and I had some affiliates, and I thought, man, this would be really cool to have an opportunity to work with this guy who's hanging out with all these other marketing thought leaders. This would really be an opportunity for me to raise my game. And he had a really interesting process. You didn't send in your resume. You actually competed in a series of challenges, and whoever won at the end, that would become his affiliate manager. And long story short, I won. And you mentioned the 80-20 book. So I'm actually in 2 chapters of the book. Chapter 6 is about a concept I came up with called the tactical triangle. And then, so he goes into detail into that. And then towards the end of the book, somewhere near the end, he describes that hiring process that I just talked about. And I don't know if he mentions me by name, but I went through version 1.0 of that process and won the challenges. And so it was sort of like The Apprentice. And so, at the end I won, and I thought it was going to be a 6-month gig. It ended up being 6 years. It was a fantastic experience. Excuse me, I just had to it's 6 a.m. So I had feeling like I need to dilute some of the coffee. After 6 years, actually after about 4.5 years, I really had that entrepreneurial itch. I decided to start building a software business on the side, sort of like a side hack, not because I wasn't enjoying working with Perry, but just, if you're an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur from, all the way through. Yeah. And so I started building this out. A few of those things started taking off. And for a while, I tried to balance, the side hustle and working for Perry. And then the side hustle overshadowed, the main thing. And me and Perry just had a conversation, said, look, you need to spread your wings. He needs someone dedicated on his business. We're still friends and amigos to this day. But I went on to build some software companies. And one of my biggest challenges, maybe we'll get into this, was, you mentioned it in the intro, was, hiring my first people, because, I tend to I tend to make mistakes, the first time out of the gate, but I stick with it. And, to this day, building a team of absolutely brilliant and talented people is really what has taken my business, to where it is today, and hopefully where it's going in the future. It's just, it's just a game changer. But there was that time where I just really struggled with being able, like, how do you do this? How do you make this work? Because I tried to follow some of the stuff from the 4-hour work week, and not throwing shade, to Ferriss, but some of the stuff just sounded so easy. I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna be amazing. I'm gonna hire someone for $4 an hour. And, it just didn't work out the way that it sounded like it worked out for Tim. And so it really set me back, and I thought, well, I guess this works for other people. But when I finally cracked the code on that, or at least figured some things out, figured out enough, that's when things really took off. So that's kind of the story. And what my team has been building and working on and improving for the past 12 years is Deadline Funnel. And so we can take the conversation in whatever direction you want.
Yeah. No, this is amazing. I already have a few questions here throughout your journey, right? First, you mentioned doing some strange jobs here and there. I'm actually curious, like, what kind of strange jobs were you like a bartender, and were you serving frozen margaritas? Is that why you like them so much?
No. So the reason why we keep coming back to the margaritas is that it's just where I live in Australia right now. There's just not a Mexican restaurant I can go to where they've got the Slurpee machine or the frozen margarita machine.
Yeah. I think it's important that we clarify that, so we don't make you look like some sort of alcoholic or something like that. So I appreciate the clarification.
The Mexicans haven't made their way all the way to where you are. Sounds like a business opportunity for me, Jack. Just saying, maybe you have you partner up and you open the first Mexican restaurant.
It could be. So. Okay, back to so the question was about the strange job. So one of the strange jobs was I worked for. So there was a guy that I knew through softball that worked for Court Furniture, and he had his own side gig where this was shortly after 9/11, and he would get a contract to set up cubicles. And so my job was for a couple $100 cash. I would show up at Court Furniture, one morning really early. The U-Haul would be loaded up with a bunch of of the pieces that go together to make the cubicles, and then I would drive out to wherever it was several hours away. I would show up and I would start building this cubicle. And I'll tell you, one of the thoughts that occurred to me, like the 4th or 5th time that I did this, I only did this maybe a dozen times, but like the 4th or 5th time that I did this, I'm putting this thing together and I'm just really not having a fun time doing it. I think there were some parts missing or whatever, but I thought, it's kind of ironic that, part of my blueprint for leaving what I look at, working for corporate America, for me personally, was like being in prison. Like my last job was horrible. So I was like, this is my escape plan from prison. building prisons for other people.
That's funny. I'm always super interested in like the jobs side of things, because I remember that, we've never been a fan of corporate or jobs, in that sense, right? I think that itch of entrepreneurship has been always present, but we identified it late after college, right? In our life, I guess, or I say late, but it's like right after college. That's so early.
Keep going. Keep going with your point.
And I remember, you always thought like, okay, one job and you stick to it and you're responsible to this thing and or that one path. And I remember listening to, I think it's a guy that has a show on Discovery Channel about the ugly shows or what ugly
Mike something.
Dirty jobs.
Yeah. And I remember listening to an interview where he's like, how do you know what you really like if you never tried something different, right? And it's like, here's the thing, like go try one job. If you don't like it, go and try another one. And if you don't like it, go try another one. Yeah. And I'm like, man, what an important thing to hear, because it gives you like the freedom to try different things. And you could do that with job, or you could do that with your entrepreneurial journey as well. And, in a sense, that's how we've been able to find the thing that we're really passionate about, because at first, we thought we were going to be millionaires selling vinyl stickers, right? And it turns out that was not the thing that we love to do. And but it led to the next thing, and it led to the next thing, right? So
Robert Greene actually talks about that concept too. For those that are not familiar, Robert Greene wrote the 48 Laws of Power. He has like a bunch of very famous books. And he said that he always wanted to be a writer, but he was never kind of like given the opportunity. And in that time between his first contract, which was for the 48 Laws of Power, he had 60 different jobs, which that experience allowed him to craft what later on became the 48 Laws of Power. So, I'm pretty sure building the prison cubicles has some influence you in a way to also, how you probably took a lesson from there that you could later apply on something else, and some lessons from the other weird jobs that you might have done that you could potentially apply on your business.
Well, so one of the biggest impacts on my leadership philosophy is my last corporate job. It was so the second to last job was Merrill Lynch, and I was a financial advisor for 3 years in Ponte Vedra, Florida. So that's also right around the corner from you guys.
Yeah.
And then there was a startup company in Neptune Beach, which again another local area. And so I left Merrill Lynch to join this startup company, and it just really was not fun at all. It was just everything that I didn't want it to be. And so I just remember thinking to myself, if I ever somehow are able to have my own company, if I'm ever so fortunate, I'm just going to do the opposite of what these jokers and these clowns have done, with their team. So for example, holding meetings where you just want to hear your opinion reflected back to you. Like you have like everyone around, like and everyone's like job is to go around like the butt kissing line. And I thought I was in this meeting one time, and they were so I'm reading marketing and direct response stuff from people like Dan Kennedy and Perry Marshall, and so I've got all these ideas. I'm just just so eager to contribute and share, but I didn't have the courage at the time to start my own company. And so imagine where the manager brings in like 12 of us, and they're like, hey, we just spent all this money on these new advertisements going to go in the trade mag. And so they show it, and I was like, oh my God, this is beautiful. This is the best thing ever. Oh my God, you guys are brilliant. And I'm like, this is really good, but what if you put a unique URL or call to action, like so you could track your ads, and and then what if we put some of the testimonials, because we've got amazing testimonials from some of our clients, what if we put those in the ad? And this headline, instead of it being like this like weird we believe in you type of thing, like what if it was like something where if you just had the headline, people are like, hell yeah, like I want to take action on that. Yeah. And so I gave out like 5 or 6 ideas that are straight out of marketing direct response 101. And I hope it's okay to say this, but the manager looked at me like I had stood up on the table in front of everyone, pulled down my pants, and just like use the toilet like in front of everyone. And I'm like, oh, like inside my head I'm like, I get it. Like this, you didn't want my opinion. You wanted me to tell you how smart you are. Wow. I get it. So that's that's just one of the many things that I've taken into my business is surround yourself with smart people, get their advice, and then listen to it. There are times where I will, listen to the advice and still go the direction that I want to go, but that's really rare. More often than not, someone else other than me is coming up with the best idea in the room or the next idea to try, because you said, just like you said, like we don't always know what's going to work. Yeah. So hey, let's try your idea, Luis. Yeah. Let's go in that direction. Let's see how that works. So I think listening to your team and empowering them, and then, by the way, giving them credit giving away credit instead of saying like, look how smart I am. I'm like, anytime that I'm on a show, I really try to genuinely elevate my team, but I also do it internally. And if something is a success, whether it's a small win or a big win, we'll celebrate those wins internally in Slack and team meetings, and I give credit away. To the point that the other day my right hand man's like, you told so and so that they did all the work on that, and you did like 60% of the work. I'm like, look, I don't need the credit. Like that's not what's important. It's important that people are recognized for the value that they bring.
Absolutely. I love that, man. The other day, I actually watched a video of Ray Dalio. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Yeah. He wrote a very famous book, for those that don't know him, called Principles. And one of his like core, I'll say like values in his business is radical transparency. And it's super interesting because he developed this software that they use inside of their company, that when they're meeting, people with a tablet can pretty much like evaluate and give their opinion on what other people are talking. And then he has like polls and everything come out, and he really takes into consideration what not just obviously the CEO is saying, but literally somebody that is like in month one of the company. And then they, through algorithms and whatnot, they make some of the decisions. But I found this super interesting, right? Because at the end of the day, like, you hear from very successful people is the empowerment of the team, right? Like, you want to hire rock stars, like you want to be able to provide to them the environment so they can thrive and they can be successful. And if you find yourself in an environment kind of like your old, job, where all the manager wants to do is to hear how smart he is, it's going to be very difficult to grow that way. I
think like what you just explained is such a valuable lesson, right? Because I feel like people that are transitioning into entrepreneurship, or they're chasing a dream, right? It's coming from also a place that maybe a negative experience that they had, and they're like, I don't want to be there, right? And sometimes we feel a little bit lost on how to go about our new journey, right? So you mentioned, and I highlight, right? I want to do the opposite of what these guys were doing, right? And I think like that's a great place to start. I remember I used to work in the fitness industry. I used to manage fitness studios. And there was a moment in transition where leadership, this new guy came in from corporate, right? And he brought all the corporate ideas, and we were coming from a place of like, we had all this like family environment with all the studio managers. And guy comes a little too strong, and my studio was going through this transition point where I needed a new head coach. And he's like, this is your new head coach. Instead of like asking the team that has been there for 3 years, like, hey, who do you want from the network? Like, we have so many. Can we do a tryout? Can we have like these guys, like, do they fit in the culture of this thing? And I remember they say the name of the guy. The guy comes in one day. I'm not in the studio. My assistant manager calls me freaking out. This guy just came in, like, he just started like bossing people around. What do we do? And I'm like, oh boy, we gotta stop this. And I remember having this phone call with like, hey, that's unacceptable. The guy apparently came in, told them what to do. These guys had no idea that these guys were gonna be the new head coach, and I'm doing air quotations. It was such a negative experience that the whole team rejected that, right? And even though that was the feedback that was shared, the decision wasn't heard, and they moved forward with that decision. I'm like, okay, what is the feedback loop here? So that's one of the lessons I personally, took with me, just like you did with yours. I'm like, okay, when this happens, like, what is the thing? We're going through a moment right now with Content is Profit and BIZBROS where we might need to be hiring new people. And I remember like we've been repeating this on our team meetings every day. It's like, hey, do you know somebody that you guys know the process? Who do we know? Like, who do you want to be in here? Like, where do we need support? Like, what are the things? And again, like, those are tricky conversations, but I think like when the team is involved in these conversations, it can yield many positive results. So thank you for sharing that, because you just gave a great starting point for people that are transitioning into building those teams, or what the next step is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I call it the Costanza method of leadership. So it ties back. The Costanza reference is Seinfeld. There was an episode or two where Costanza decides everything in his life is just awful, and he decides, you know what, if every thought or decision leads to the life that he has, he's just going to start doing the opposite of whatever pops into his head, and all of a sudden his life like takes off. So Yeah, I mean, for someone who has, really not enjoyed their corporate life, or they can remember a job that they hated, try to think back to all the, like, specifically the things that you didn't like, and just work that into, like, what if I did the opposite? What if I empowered people? What if I listened to their opinion? What if I gave credit away instead of trying to make myself look as good as possible? What if, bringing people on the team, obviously there's an onboarding process, but what if the message was, and we do this overtly, what if the message was, hey, don't wait 6 months, 12 months before you feel comfortable saying, hey, what if we did this? Like, we want unique ideas. We want you to feel like you can bring up ideas, and, not every idea is going to be adopted. Don't be hurt if we don't, run with your idea, but we want you to participate and bring your ideas to the table, because great ideas can come from anywhere. And so those are some of the things that we try to incorporate. But one more thing that I'll mention is that this kind of ties back to something that we said a little bit earlier. I wish that someone had told me when I was growing up, my parents had a pretty good network of people who did different things, architects and doctors and teachers and lawyers and blah, blah, blah. And I wish that the advice that I had been given was, look, go try out, be the coffee delivery guy, or just sit in the office with so-and-so for a week and then test it out. See what it's like. What is it like to be an attorney? Like, do they secretly hate their job? Do you would you like working here? Or is there something that you feel like it makes your skin crawl? Like, go work for, your uncle, the veterinarian, and see, like, what is it like working for him? And so I wish that I had, just gone through this experimentation phase of just testing out these different jobs, so that you can because I would start to see patterns of, okay, when a job involves dealing with this type of situation, or this really doesn't make me happy, this doesn't give me energy. And so that's another bit of advice. So I'm trying to tell my 16-year-old daughter to do the same thing, like, go try different things. Not it's not necessarily the money, in doing the internship. It's crossing things off your list. Like, okay, I now know that I never want to do X.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is such valuable advice. I mean, not to throw shade at the education system, but
throw a lot of shade.
You tried, like, they want you to make a decision, right? Pretty much on what you're going to study, what's going to be, without trying anything. And how many people, end school, go to their jobs, and then they're miserable. And then they probably are just staying there because of, I don't know, the opportunity cost, right? Like, they've invested so much in the education to be there that they probably feel bad transitioning to another thing.
Jack, we're gonna play a quick game. Can you guess what was FONZI's internship before college?
Like my high school internship.
Take a wild guess.
Take a wild guess.
I don't even know how it was called.
Oh, well, that makes it creative. Dog catcher.
Dog catcher. Hey,
maybe close.
I was trying to go, like, just
way back.
Yeah, no.
I promise you. This is
my internship in high school was actually for, like, a nonprofit that took care of the forest back home, like in a mountain that's back home, and I was mainly taking care of, like, this greenhouse. So I had to, like, water the plants, like, build a compost. But I spent probably 80% of my internship eating mangoes. I'm not kidding. Like, after the first day, I noticed that there were, like, so many, like, mango trees out there that I was like, I'm just going to carry a knife with me and I'm just going to eat mangoes all day. But yeah, I had one of those weird jobs too, if you want to put it that way.
I think that's such an important principle, right? Like, and let's say, like, we talk about content, we talk about teams, and the content sense, right? Like, you have to experiment a bunch of stuff, right? From creation, right? To publication, to, like, what is your style? What is your things, right? There's a lot of things that we talk about where people come in and, like, they want the secret formula. What is the one thing, right? But there's different creation methods. And as far as, like, building the company, there's a lot of parallels too. Like, there's probably different ways of building a company. For us, we've definitely tried a few, and we found one that fit our style, that, like, a communication style with our team that fits our style, that fits the team style, and we've been able to grab traction.
Wait, does it fit our style? Just kidding.
Jack, should we kick him off the podcast?
Yeah,
it fits our style.
It fits our style.
Okay, yeah. But I think that's something that it's super important to recognize, right? Have you, through your experiences and through these last 12 years of building your companies, like how do you find your frameworks? Like, how do you find like what works and what doesn't? Do you have a system to do that, right? For example, I'll give you a little bit of context. Like when we first started doing team meetings, right? We hired our first team members like 2 years ago. And initially it was like, okay, let's talk once a week and everything through Slack, right? And then it wasn't working out. There was some miscommunication. And then we started adopting the daily huddle, right? So we started meeting every morning and it was a 1 hour meeting every morning. And then we started like tangent alerts everywhere, like all these conversations going different ways. And FONZI is like, man, like we're wasting a lot of time in these meetings, right? Like maybe we're getting stuff done, but it's not as effective. And then we're like, okay, we compress it to 30 minutes. And then we followed a structure. And then we had a longer meetings on Thursdays. And we've been like trying and refining this process more and more throughout the last couple of years. And right now we're to the point where like the daily huddles can be like 15 minutes. Everybody knows exactly what to do, how to communicate, and we move forward, right? So for us has been like this continuous iteration on the process. How has it been for you? What are some of the lessons there that you can share with people?
Yeah. So I'm gonna share some common themes that have already come up, but I think it'll be insightful to hear that for us, it's been a constant process of trying new things and iteration. And something will work for a while and then it might stop working or might become less effective. Sometimes when you try something new, the newness of it makes it work for a little while, but then like you were talking about the tangents coming up. And so, we try to borrow ideas from things that from articles that are, that either I read or my team reads. And so we might hear about a new way that maybe Dropbox is organizing their teams. We're like, okay, what can we borrow from that and try to implement that? Like what would work? A lot of times we won't implement the entire thing because, for example, maybe Dropbox, as that example, they have a huge, their engineering department is bigger than our entire company. And so, is that entire framework going to work? Maybe not, but maybe we can take a component. What if we tried this thing?
Yeah.
We try it for a little while and see how it works. The other thing that is a theme that's come up before is really involving the team and just seeing like, okay, what can we do to improve the process? If the process is, hey, we need to, the reason why you're doing if you take it back to first principles, the reason why you're doing those meetings is because you want everyone on the same page. You want the team to be able to collaborate. You want to make sure that information is not siloed in different areas of the company. Mm-hmm. So you try those meetings and they work for a little while, but then they're going off on tangents. But if everyone on the team understands, here's the reason why we were trying to do these meetings in the first place. So, okay, this part of it's working, but this part isn't. Let's have a meeting about how we can improve our meetings. And sometimes you can get some really, really powerful ideas from your team. And even if an idea doesn't come up right away, if you plant the seed, then it's sort of like when you it's a reticular activating system where when you buy a new car, all of a sudden you're seeing it all over the road. So, if you plant the seed that, hey, here's what we're looking for. We're looking for some ideas that are going to help us, be able to collaborate better in Slack. Or, is Slack the best way for us to communicate? What are some better ways for us to work together, but not get, distracted and have, so that there's a lot of task switching. So if the idea is, hey, the problem is that the way we're communicating in Slack, and this literally happened for us, something that we had to deal with is, Slack is amazing for certain types of conversations. And so we try to analyze what sort of conversations is Slack good for, and when does it become more of a distraction? Like, so now we have an idea of, okay, these types of conversations go into ClickUp, which is what we use for, for our project management. And these types of conversations go in Slack. And not only which conversations do we have in Slack, but kind of where they go. And it's not like super regimented. I've seen some companies where there's a standard operating procedure for every single little thing. So it's not that regimented, but we have an understanding of, look, for the communication to flow correctly, this conversation needs to go here and this conversation needs to go here. And then there's there's opportunities for people to evaluate each other. There are members of my team who will, point out to, say, someone in the client services department, hey, you see this answer over here? You could have done a little bit of a better job. And it's not, hey, you idiot. It's, hey, our clients, like, we're here to serve our clients. So our clients need, in order for the company to succeed, our clients need to succeed. And so this answer that you gave over here could have been better. So it's not like, let's just try to up our game. And so we're constantly trying to level up our game. I think another thing that's really important to model for your team is taking feedback and not taking it personally, right? And, being able to, making sure that your team feels comfortable to not only give each other feedback and not take it personally, and also understand how to give feedback that isn't taken personally, that isn't insulting, but also to model to your team that it's okay to receive feedback and like take it in and go, I think you made a good point. Like, I'm going to try to work on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, communication is 100% key. And talking about communication, look at this smooth segue. Going into content, right? Content, obviously, it's a lot of communication between you and your audience, right? Mm-hmm. And you mentioned previously that you love, you didn't quite say you love, but I have the feeling you do direct response marketing, right? So I went on, Facebook Ads Library, and I was like, I have a feeling they might be doing some direct response marketing to Deadline Funnel. So I started looking Deadline Funnel and I started seeing your ads. And, I think that is part of the core content that you guys create, is those pieces of advertisement so you can present to people, obviously get them to take an action. And I'm extremely curious, right? Like, what is your thought specifically in today's content world, right? That you have so many different mediums, right? Different source of different type of creators, right? B2B people are creating content in a different way than just like straight creators. And then you have direct response marketers that are crafting content, right, with these very specific techniques and values, I guess, to drive action and results. So I'm curious on your opinion around the content world, first of all, kind of like on a general basis. And then I'm curious on how are you crafting these pieces of advertisement, or what other types of content are you using to drive results inside of your business?
So I'm going to take this in a direction that might surprise you, but so if I'm not answering the question the way that you want, please bring me back.
Oh, no, you're good.
I find, for me, the channel and the content method that has really worked the best for us is using happy clients and basically word of mouth. Some of the word of mouth is natural and organic. Some of the word of mouth is where it kind of comes in and starts as natural and organic, but it won't blossom unless you nurture it and feed it. And I'll explain what that means. And then some of the word of mouth is through affiliates and JV partners, which is networking. And so we've done an amazing job. If you were to go to, and I'm just pointing this out as an example, if you were to go to deadlinefunnel.com and check out the, what people say about us, we have a great array of different videos and testimonials and case studies from not just thought leaders, but also, people who are just in the trenches doing their thing, using our software. And so we've done a really good job of making sure that the people who have the #1 podcast, who have, shows like yours, and, they've built up their own audience, that they know about Deadline Funnel and that we're doing an amazing job, and they want to talk about Deadline Funnel. Like, even if, like, whether they're paid or not, they just love talking about it because they know what the software can do for people, what it's done for them, and also what our team is all about. And so getting other people to create the content for you has always been a really powerful strategy for us, because nothing is more effective, in my opinion, than hearing how another client would say it. Or, if you're in Pat Flynn's community and you hear Pat Flynn talking about Deadline Funnel and why he uses Deadline Funnel and what he thinks about the customer service he gets from the team, blah, blah, blah. There's no amount of copywriting. I could be the most amazing copywriter in the world. There's nothing that I could say in a direct response ad or even a content piece that is going to be more effective than your man, Pat Flynn, saying, I love Deadline Funnel, or me showing up on Amy Porterfield's podcast and her talking about how she uses Deadline Funnel. But, even on a smaller level, for interviewing people who this is the so I'm coming back to the part where I said sometimes it's organic, but you have to feed it. So I think a lot of times entrepreneurs will have a comment come in like, hey, just want to say thanks, you guys are awesome. And either that comment gets ignored, or maybe there's a quick reply, oh, thanks, that's super. Or maybe they will take a screenshot of that testimonial and put it on their website. But what I think that you should do is that you should reach out to them and go, oh man, I'm so glad that you are loving the experience with Content is Profit. Hey, let me tell you, would you be open to having a quick conversation where I could interview you about your experience and find out a little bit more about you? Maybe if the interview goes well, we share it with our audience. And so taking that small little signal of I'm a happy client and you've helped change my life, and saying, okay, how can we, instead of just taking what they gave us, because usually what they gave you is interesting, but it's not compelling. It's not in the form of a story, right? And how can we turn that, how can we nurture that and grow that and shape that into a piece of content that someone wants to read? It's engaging and it's shaped it's from a real client, not something that me and my team thought, okay, what's going to be the best headline here, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times that type of content, is the most compelling and most engaging for the audience. And you're really capturing the pains and the frustrations that your audience is feeling, because it's coming from someone who experienced those pains and frustrations. And then they hear the journey that person went through and how their life has changed after using your product or joining your community or joining your coaching program or whatever it is.
Absolutely. I mean, and going back to direct response, I love the direct response world. You can potentially have all these conversations, and that is all the material you need to craft your sales letter, like your rest of the marketing material that you might need, to grow your business comes from the words of the people that are, experiencing the success of your product. And I think that is absolutely amazing, right? At the same time, people want to be part of a community. They want to be part, and they want to have security that something works before they make the decision. So by seeing content generated by your users, right, saying about how awesome it is and their experience and sharing everything about it, people are probably more inclined to make a positive decision about that than coming from yourself, right? Like you could be saying the same exact words, but since you are the co-founder, right, and they are users, like that causes such a different impression on the person that's on the receiving end of the message.
Yeah, exactly. And as you were mentioning, when you gather these case studies and you have these conversations, it makes your copy better, so that when you're writing your ads, when you're writing your emails, when you're crafting your webinar slides, you're no longer using your words. You're if you're smart, and you've had enough of these conversations, you start to use the language of your audience. And so that makes everything that you do in the direct response world or the content world even more powerful. And then being able to sprinkle these case studies and these stories throughout your presentation. So one of the things that I try to do when I did a webinar presentation yesterday. And so when I make a point, I try to then use that as an opportunity to, weave in a client story that proves that point. It's not, even though the client story is kind of a testimonial about Deadline Funnel, the context in which I'm bringing it in at that point is a great way for me to, yes, I'm subtly weaving in, we have clients, they're getting happy results, but because I'm choosing that specific testimonial to back up the point that I just made, which really is about, say, how to grow your business, or the difference between doing launch after launch after launch versus building a sales machine, an asset that you can leverage and grow and improve. So making that point of like, look, you want to have this business asset that you can grow and improve, and it will, over time, it's almost guaranteed to win, rather than doing launch after launch after launch and getting frustrated. So if I'm making that point, I can really bring that point home by telling a story about someone, like a quick story about a client who made the switch from one to the other and how it's changed her business. And so not only have I really reinforce that point, which is helpful for the sales message. But I've also weaved in a testimonial because it's clear that this is a deadline funnel client. But a lot of people just use testimonials when they want to make the point of, hey, a lot of people use our stuff and they think that we're awesome. But there's other really creative ways that I think a lot of people overlook using client stories and testimonials that can really make your content so much more impactful. Because really what I was just describing, even though it was in the form of a webinar, could be used for if you're doing an epic blog post, right? During that blog post, you're making points. Now those points, depending on what the overall objective of that long form piece of content is probably, whether it's top of funnel or bottom of funnel, you're structuring it in a way where you're thinking, okay, if they understand this and they understand the next thing, then they understand the next thing, the next logical step is for them to sign up for a trial or join the free community or take that next step. And so along the way, why not use case studies or examples or quotes from clients that back up the point that you make? So you make the point, and then you prove it with not something that you said, but a client testimonial.
Yeah.
And so these testimonials, again, are not, deadline funnel is amazing. The testimonial, because we have plenty of those, but the testimonial is like, my business completely changed when I stopped, focusing only on launches and, building an asset, an evergreen business, and using launches as the thing that, is the cherry on top, and so you can improve whatever content that you're creating by weaving these client stories in.
Yeah. Oh man, that is what we call a hashtag golden boulder. Yes. Thank you for the sound. And that's amazing, right? Because like you mentioned, there's so many other creative ways to use client stories rather than just testimonials. And probably 95% of the way I see most people are using the client stories are in a testimonial way, right? Where there is a testimonial page or, within the sales page, there are testimonials like a sprinkle in there. But I love the fact that, every time you try to illustrate a point with a story, now you're going to, okay, what client has a win that illustrates this point, right? That takes people from pain to, success. And then they can put themselves in those shoes, and you're illustrating them with their story rather than with your own personal experience.
Yeah,
I think that is A+ right there.
So Jack, we have as we wrap up the show in the last 3 minutes, I wanna challenge people in their action point for today. It's do the outreach, for those that receive the amazing comments on anything, right? Like whether that's your podcast, whether that's your product, whether that's your service, and reach out and ask. Just share with us to hop on a quick call and share the stories, right? Because that's going to be way more powerful that Facebook message, right? And I 100% recognize that we've done better in the past than we've done lately, especially when the product and the things that we've been so in the business, right? That sometimes we forget to have those conversations. And we do get some of those comments, especially when we launch for the show. So Jack, I'm going to take that action point and do it as well. And I challenge people in the audience and people listening today to go do that. Now, for the last question of the show, like our favorite question, where will you be if you never published, if you never tackled content?
Oh, where would I be? I probably would be, dreaming about being an entrepreneur like I was when before I left my last job. So, understanding how to reach your audience and how to meet them where they're at, and then help them cross the chasm from where they are to where they want to be. And then, giving them an opportunity to take that journey with you, I think is absolutely critical. And that comes from messaging and communication. And so I think the skill of understanding how to form a message, understanding how to empathize with your audience, understanding how to take the risk away and really make something that feels scary feel a little bit more comfortable is absolutely critical. And all of that is messaging and packaged up inside of content. And so you've got to master messaging, you've got to master content, regardless of what your channel is. We talked about my channel, but there's other channels. Some people are masters at YouTube videos, but you've got to choose your medium. and figure out how to make your messaging work. So no, if it wasn't for content, if it wasn't for messaging, our business, if it existed at all, would be just a small fraction of what it is today.
Yeah, powerful. Thanks for sharing, Jack. Appreciate it. Jack, where can people find you? Where can people connect with you?
Yeah, the best place is Deadline Funnel. I'm not super active on Instagram or Twitter or any of that stuff. So just come on over to Deadline Funnel. We have people so there's a 14-day free trial. I don't want to do a huge pitch here, but there is a 14-day free trial, and we have a community that is part of that. So you can join other entrepreneurs like you. Come in, and it's not just about the software; it's about helping entrepreneurs grow and scale their business. So that's where people can interact with me and my team and get advice on their business.
Awesome. Thank you, Jack. I'm here on the website right now, deadlinefunnel.com, and I've seen that 2 of the people that work with you have been part of the Contents Profit family.
I know.
Chandler Bolt and the one and only Todd Brown.
Yes.
Or should I say Mr. Todd?
Mr. Todd, yeah. That's inner joke over there. It's awesome, Jack. It has been so fun. Thank you for the conversation. Lots of insights on the team building side, like all over the place. It was so good. So many action points. I feel people take what you listen today and pick one thing and go take action. I think that's how we can start getting traction. Go try like 300 jobs, figure out the one that you like. 300 entrepreneurial ventures. Okay.
Yeah.
Jack, anything else you want to add before we head out?
No, I'm just I'm looking forward to seeing you guys when I come back to the States. So that'll be awesome.
Yeah, we have a bet going on. FONZI against Jack in tennis, and I think FONZI is going to be buying the margaritas.
We're gonna live stream that game, Jack. We're gonna live stream it, and I'm telling you, I'm gonna practice from today until the day that you come. Whew. You're not gonna know if you're playing against me or if you're playing against Novak Djokovic. Just saying.
All right,
Luis, should I use a wooden racket or should I use a modern racket?
It doesn't matter. You're still gonna lose.
You're gonna use one of those like training paddles that are like super thin, you know?
Yeah. Awesome, guys. With that said, thank you so much for tuning into the Contents Profit podcast. Go ahead and follow the show in your favorite platform and on social media at BIZBROS Co.
That is right. And if Jack here helped you move one step closer towards your goal, please don't forget to share this episode and leave a 5-star review. See ya.
Bye, guys.